Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and you're all very welcome to webinar number 27 in the Irish Bioenergy Association webinar series. Our topic this morning is Balcas Energy delivering decarbonised heat, hot water and process steam through wood pellet biomass. My name is Sean Finan, I'm the CEO of the Irish Bioenergy Association, and I'm delighted to welcome you all here this morning. So before we get into our webinar, just a very brief introduction to our association. For those of you who are joining us for the first time this morning, we're the representative body for the Irish bioenergy industry on the island of Ireland. We work across the areas of biomass, biogas, biofuels, biochar, wood fuel and energy crops. Our main focus and goal is to lobby and advocate on behalf of the industry and indeed develop policy and work towards the implementation of that by our political organisations. We have a broad and diverse membership, including farmers, foresters, SMEs, technology providers, consultants, fuel suppliers, academic bodies, financial institutions, anyone really with an interest in the bioenergy sector. We roll out a number of research and development projects, including our small biogas demonstration program, the 3C project, the WFQA, and also recently launched Midlands Bioenergy Development Program. To find out more, please look on our website, www.rba.org, and our goal is to work towards a sustainable energy future with bioenergy. As I said, this is webinar number 27 in our series, so as you can see, we've had a wide, diverse range of topics for the last number of months, and indeed starting in 2020 when we had our first webinar. All the recordings of previous webinars are available on our website, but also on our YouTube channel. And if you would like to present to any of our webinars, feel free to get in touch with myself or my colleague, Teresa O'Brien. Our webinar this morning is going to hear from Balcas Energy, and we're going to hear from Colm, Hatton and Paula Keelagher. Paula and Colm are both business development managers with Balcas Energy. We will then hear from Noel, who will join our panel, and we will take your questions through the Q&A tab at the bottom of the screen. And we'll endeavour to answer as many of your questions as possible. I'd like to say the date, webinar number 28, will take place this day 2 weeks, the same time, and full details will be published through our social media channels. So just to introduce our speakers for this morning, who are going to cover the topic of decarbonised heat, hot water and process steam through wood pellet biomass. So Paula is Business Development Manager with Balcas and joined Balcas in 2006 and has over 15 years experience and has helped develop the pellet market in Ireland and the UK. And Colm has joined Balcas over 3 years ago, has over 30 years experience in the industry, and Colm has a qualification in renewable energy from the European Energy Centre. So I thank Colm and Paula for agreeing to participate this morning, and we look forward to hearing their presentation. So it's over to you, Colm and Paula, to share your screen and your slides, and we look forward to hearing your presentation. And just a reminder for anyone that has any questions through the presentation, please post them to the Q&A tab at the bottom of the screen. So that's good, Colm. It's sharing and.
Good morning, everyone.
Right, Paula. Thank you. Sorry, Paula, just to presentation mode, Colm. Perfect. Over to you, okay? Paula. Thanks. Sorry for interrupting you. Thank you.
No problem. Thank you, Sean, and thank you, RBA, for this opportunity for Colm and myself to present today. We hope we cover all aspects of our operation and how we're trying to decarbonise and ultimately aim to make sure that we reduce carbon in Ireland and GB. I think this slide speaks for itself. There is no plan B. These headlines are all over the media and the news every day. We need to act now. Our actions will help to influence the future for our children and for people coming behind us. So it's very, very important. Balcas Energy, who are we? We are a timber sawmill in Enniskillen, County Fermanagh. We were established in the 1960s. We have over 100 million pounds per annum turnover. There's two divisions, there's Balcas Timber and Balcas Energy, whom Colm and myself are part of. We process 1 million tonnes of timber logs every year. We produce 300,000 metres cubed of sawn timber products. We have a forestry team, and we have a mixture of short and long-term contracts to guarantee supply for our customers. 30% of our raw material is sourced from private landlords. We have over 370 employees, and we've indirectly 300 other people employed, subcontracting, lorry drivers, etc. Balcas pioneered wood pellets in 2004 in Enniskillen, and then we had our Invergordon plant coming out afterwards in 2009. We are very proud and pleased to be part of the Lennon Brothers group. Lennon Brothers is a family-owned Irish business with sawmills in Longford and Fermoy in Ireland, and Troon in Edinburgh in Scotland, and timber frame home manufacturing plants in Arklow and Troon. The Lennon Brothers group, including Balcas, generates 14.5 megawatts of electricity. It's self-sufficient renewable electricity that comes from all of the forests of these islands. We process more than 2 million tonnes of logs per year. 100% of this resource grows back in balance with its harvest. There's over 900 full-time employees, mostly in rural locations. Annual turnover is 350 million. Manufacture 800,000 metres cubed of sawn timber. Produce over 2,500 timber framed homes. And I think we're a leading example of sustainable and circular economy in action. This is just an overhead photograph of the Balcas plant in Enniskillen. It's an 82-acre site. Down to the very bottom, top right, you can see our CHP combined heat and power plant. And this is all the sawmills on site. The yellow timber is the actual timber, processed timber, and you can see the log yard down to the top right here as well, where we have 2 weeks supply of timber sitting, or logs sitting to be waiting to be processed and made into the end product, pallet wood or posts. Again, this is the actual log yard as you head down towards the CHP plant. You can see the timber sitting there waiting to be processed. This is the actual product when it's been made into the various types of wood to go out to the various suppliers. So you've treated wood and you've untreated wood, just depends on what the end user requires. This is a photograph of our actual combined heat and power plant. To the right, you have the actual CHP boiler, the Vinky boiler. And then to the left, you have the actual pellet plant and the bagging plant. The 3 silos you can see there is where the end product comes out and is loaded into the lorries for delivery to customers. At the very back there, you can see the actual raw material, the sawdust and the actual wood chip and material from the sawmill that goes into the CHP. And then the sawdust goes into the actual pellet production.
Morning, everybody.
I'm going to hand over to Colm now. Sorry, I'm going to hand over to Colm, my colleague Colm.
I want to talk a little bit about the process of making wood pellets. So at the start, obviously, it's the raw material. So this is high quality sawmill residues and inferior quality logs not suitable for use as sawn timber. Initial processing reduces particle size and screens out oversized material to improve the efficiency of the drying process. The material dries at an air temperature of more than 100 degrees centigrade, which reduces moisture content by up to 50%. And this is all using heat from our on-site CHP plants. Particle size is further reduced in a dry material hammer mill, ready for pressing into EM plus A1 quality wood pellets. Raw material then is extruded through the pellet forming die at very high pressure. This process draws out the natural lignin of the wood, which helps bind the material together. The pellets are then cooled from approximately 90 degrees centigrade to less than 40 degrees. This ensures they are fully hardened. They are then screened to remove all fines, and any fines are recycled back into the production process, so nothing is wasted. We store all the pellets in the on-site silos, as you would have seen in the previous picture, and they're ready for filling then into our dedicated bulk delivery trucks and 10-kilo bags. We sample and test all pellets during production and on dispatch to guarantee EM plus A1 quality standard. We have a little video here which very much explains the entire process from start to finish as well.
This tree is the future. The logs we use in Balcas are harvested from sustainably managed local forests. For every tree we use, we plant 4 more. Trees absorb carbon as they grow. Carbon dioxide is a greenhouse gas which is harmful in the atmosphere in large amounts. Forests can absorb some of this gas, which is why they are so good for the planet. Logs are transported to the Balcas sawmill where they are stripped of bark. The bark-free log is then sawn into high-quality wood products for construction, fencing and pallets. These products store the CO2 for many years into the future. Left over is the bark, sawdust and wood chip. In the past, these co-products were transported away and were not used as efficiently as they might have been, whilst the electricity and heat that was needed in our sawmill was generated using fossil fuel. So, in 2004, our engineers had a bright idea. Why not use these materials to create green energy to power our operations on site and also create a high-grade wood pellet fuel? And so we did. We created the Combined Heat and Power Plant, CHP, and also the Pellet Plant. We are now operating these plants in Enniskillen, Northern Ireland and Invergordon, Scotland. In the CHP plant, bark and low-grade wood chip are used to fuel the furnace. Heat generated from the furnace heats water in the boiler to generate steam, a bit like a kettle. All this steam turns a large turbine to generate all the green energy, electricity and heat we need to use on site. In the wood pellet plant, sawdust and high-grade wood chip are refined in the grinders and dried using the renewable energy from the CHP plant. It is further refined, mixed and squeezed into the pellet press where wood pellets are created and then cooled. We carefully screen to remove any excess fines and all wood pellets are tested during and after production to ensure the highest quality. The pellets are then stored in silos, ready for dispatch direct to truck or in our 10-kilogram bags. At Balcas, we are proud of our sustainable production process that uses every part of the tree to produce high-quality wood products and green energy. Balcas Energy empowers people to choose renewable heating today for homes, businesses and industry. Renewable energy and shorter distances mean our carbon footprint is less than imported pellets travelling halfway around the globe, and less handling means even better quality. And choosing Balcas Energy means supporting local communities and sustainable forestry. This tree is the future.
Our total pellet production is approximately 60,000 tonnes in Enniskillen and 120,000 tonnes in Invergordon. And the carbon that we save tied up in our timber products, our sawn timber products, is 300,000 tonnes of CO2 per annum. Generating our own green electricity with our on-site CHP plant saves another 37,000 tonnes of CO2. And the fact that people use our pellets then means there's another 250,000 tonnes of CO2 saved every year. Over the last 10 years, we have sold more than 2 million tonnes of wood pellets, displaced the equivalent of more than 1 billion litres of imported oil, equating to more than 3 million tonnes of carbon savings. And we're very proud to say that we are part of the circular bioeconomy. Global wood pellet production has more than doubled in the last 10 years to over 40 million tonnes, and this has been driven by North America and Europe mainly. Not all wood pellets are the same. They can have different colours, different diameters, be made of different wood species and be virgin or recycled wood, all of which lead to different characteristics. These characteristics can include ash content, calorific value and durability, which can impact the amount of dust or fines created during transport. We think there are three main factors to consider when choosing your source of wood pellets, namely security of supply. And anybody who gets pellets from us and we have a contract where we guarantee supply for them. Consistency of quality. As a manufactured product, it's important that the consistency, that you're getting the product manufactured in the same way all the time. You might have EM plus pellets coming from somebody else, but if they're coming from a different factory, they could be slightly different. But if you're getting them from the same supplier all the time, you're pretty much guaranteed the same quality. And then obviously sustainability. Pellet quality then. Quality impacts many characteristics of wood pellets. The main internationally recognized mark of quality is EM plus A1, which is recognized in 47 countries. Depending on the wood fiber used to manufacture the wood pellets, the ash content, calorific value and other characteristics can vary. EM plus A1 wood pellets are only manufactured from virgin wood fiber, so there will be zero contaminants on them that could damage appliance internals or create harmful emissions like you could get from burning paint or varnishes, which could be on waste wood. EM plus A1 covers both the production of the wood pellet as well as its delivery. It is important that you buy wood pellets that are both produced and delivered to the full accredited EM plus A1 standard. Even EM plus A1 pellets from different sources will have different characteristics. A single source ensures consistency of quality. Producers and distributors that are accredited will display the EM plus A1 logo on their invoices and other documentation. Our EM plus credentials then can be seen here. So our pellets consistently exceed the requirements of EM plus A1 quality standard. If you look at the parameters that I've highlighted here, calorific value, obviously EM plus standard is 4.6 kilowatt hours per kg, and we consistently come in at 4.8 kilowatt hours. Ash content has to be less than 0.7%, and we're consistently coming in at 0.3%, so a lot less ash than the norm. Moisture content has to be less than 10%, and we're hitting numbers around 7.5%, so again, much drier product. Mechanical durability has to be greater than 98%, and our consistent number is 98.9%. And bulk density has to be between 600 and 750 kgs per cubic meter, and we're coming in at around 672 per cubic meter. We have pellet producer and pellet distributor certification. Our pellets are tested on site during and after production to ensure quality standards are maintained. Samples are retained from every bulk load for traceability, and our pellets are also regularly tested by external independent laboratories. Wood pellet sustainability is important, as we need to ensure that only sustainably sourced materials are used for wood pellet production. A globally used measure of sustainability is the sourcing hub of Preferred by Nature, who are an NGO formerly called NEPCON. So they carry out regular audits of how sustainable the timber supply is in different regions. This checks aspects such as the legality of harvesting, the legality of exports, protected species and areas, ethics, corruption, the legality of employment and wages, and health and safety. Countries that are shown to be low risk are coloured green and generally score 100 out of 100 in the audit. So you can see Ireland, the UK, Scandinavia, France, Germany, North America, South Africa, New Zealand, they're all scoring green there. So they're very low risk countries. Other countries with perceived higher risks have a lower score and are coloured orange or red. And some are even scoring 0, like Russia, Brazil, Nigeria, and India. So anyone who will be concerned about the sustainability of the wood fibre being used in the production of the wood pellets they are using, would be recommended that they would ask their supplier. Alternatively, you can make sure you only use locally grown wood fibre in locally produced wood pellets. So in summary, we offer a quality fuel that cannot be matched by other forms of forest biomass. They're manufactured to consistent, rigorous standards, have a low moisture content and a higher bulk density, which this means there's lower storage capacity required for the equivalent amount of heat. They're produced locally, so there's lower transport carbon footprint versus imported pellets. Fewer deliveries required versus wood chip, supporting well-paid jobs in rural areas, full transparency regarding the source of the raw material. Wood pellets offer an alternative fuel that can provide the closest replication to fossil fuel generated heat, even peaky heat loads and high pressure steam. We serve thousands of customers across Ireland and the UK and supply every type of heat requirement, from domestic hot water and space heating to industrial steam solutions and everything in between. And more than 70% of what we do is to the commercial industrial market. This is just an example of a kind of a new technology, I suppose. It's very new in Ireland and the UK because it's not actually, there aren't any installations at the moment. It's a powder burner solution which can deliver energy up to 50 megawatts. It's a tried and tested technology in Europe. 25 years of industry experience with more than 100 plus proven installations. It copes like fossil fuel with various loads up to 50 megawatt. Basically, it uses wood pellets, and rather than burning them in the traditional way, the pellets are ground down to a powder, and then they're injected as an oil or a gas would be into the flame. And you can have a dual fuel option with either oil or gas. So one thing you could do would be, if in your burner, you could start the flame off for the first couple of minutes on oil or gas. Then when the flame heats up, you can inject the wood powder in. and that maintains the heat. And another benefit here is that it can start up and switch off, can be almost instantaneous, so it works much differently than traditional wood pellet boilers. Our wood pellet certifications then, obviously we're members of ERBA, and we have EM plus A1 producer and distributor certification. We're WFQA approved. We have FSC Forest Stewardship Council approval for our sustainable raw materials. We're BSL authorised, that's the biomass suppliers list in the UK, which is required in order to supply any RHI sites. And we also have ISO 9001 certification for our quality management system. Back to Paula.
I'm just going to talk about some of the customers, diverse range of customers we have. We've worked very hard to develop different kind of offerings for customers. This is Hatton Distillery. It's one of our 4 flagship projects. We have Hatton Distillery, Aberfeldy, Royal Brackla and Balmenic up on the Highlands in Scotland. Hatton manufactures over 2 million litres of whisky per annum, which is a lot of whisky. It uses 15 tonnes of steam per hour in the production process. They originally had a 10 megawatt oil boiler, which was burning HFO, heavy fuel oil, which was very much oversized for the actual site. With our advice and assistance, they transitioned to a 4 megawatt wood pellet boiler, currently saving about 4,500 tonnes of carbon per annum. This actually overachieved versus original targets. We care about the efficiency as we're responsible for the whole running and downtime and maintenance of the boiler, so it's important that it's run efficiently and going at all times. We have a contract with this customer, so they're sort of protected from fossil fuel price fluctuations, which was very attractive to them. So we've got a secure fuel supply. They've got a secure fuel supply with a long-term contract with ourselves, and it's been working very well. This is actually a picture of the actual boiler. This is what it looks like. Although on the left, it looks a bit like a rocket. The actual footprint of this Vinky boiler is 4 meters by 4 meters. It's quite small, so this is very attractive to the customer and to these sort of process heat customers. They don't have much space to spare. This is actual silos on site, and this is an 8 by 4, 8 meters by 4 meters sort of plinth where the silos are on. Unlike gas or oil, there's no restrictions to where the actual storage can go on the site. So that sort of is also attractive to the customer. Again, very little space taken. And you can see here that the lorry is actually delivering. So there's over 2 weeks of storage actually in those silos. And again, that's very attractive to the customer. So we've worked very hard to make our offering suit the actual customer. So the great, I suppose, leading on from the distilleries, the great biomass myth. Some people think that biomass is only good for base loads. This is not true, as evidence here with the actual distillery. With wood pellets, peak loads can be met. This graph shows our long-term average over 10 years at the distilleries. It's representative of what is achievable at these sites using our wood pellet boiler solutions. And as you can see, there's 96% average boiler efficiency, which is very, very good. Or 90% boiler efficiency over 12 months. And with 96% average boiler availability, and that's excluding planned maintenance and downtime. So that's the actual evidence, and we have all these figures and facts and figures available. A lot of these sites, we have remote monitoring, and that's how we manage them from Enniskillen. And we can say whenever the customer needs, we actually offer top-ups, fuel top-ups to a lot of customers, and make sure they don't ever run out. Our poultry industry experience, we're something we're very proud of. We've worked very hard with, and we supply over 1,000 poultry houses in Northern Ireland and GB, and with extensive experience in this. And a lot of these sites in Northern Ireland, we have been instrumental in helping them with their boilers and their storage, and where the site, the actual storage vessel, to make sure that we can get in, access, all those sort of things. We've given a lot of help and advice. We deliver over 45,000 tonnes of fuel per annum to some of these sites. This generates 200 million kilowatt hours of heat and produces over 160 million birds. And a lot of the farmers, we get a lot of feedback from farmers, and they've said since they've changed over to wood pellets that they have a healthier bird. They think the heat is much more ambient, healthier. It has improved the fabric of the building. There's less moisture in the actual building. The birds are turning around quicker. and the heavier boards. And that's just some of the feedback we get, and we've had some verification from Y Park about this as well. This is actually one of our happy farmers with his birds behind him. And this is actually the lorry actually doing a delivery to one of the farm sites. A lot of these sites have the actual cylindrical silos, agricultural silos. Other customers apart from distilleries and poultry, we have a range of customers. So I think what I'm trying to show here, it doesn't have to be a poultry site or a distillery. It can be any kind of site. We have car sales yards, we have lots of hotels, and we have councils that would have swimming pools on site and leisure centres, and those are big heat users, and it's very attractive for councils. We've worked with the National Trust, and the National Trust have a lot of listed buildings, so we've been very instrumental in helping them with their boiler sightings on site, because they can't have a big silo sitting out looking very ugly whenever there's visitors coming. So we've been very good in trying to get storage sites put into sheds, all that sort of thing, and that's been a good story. We also supply a concrete company, so there's a diverse range of different customers. We work very closely with government departments, Department of Finance and Personnel. They have over 15 sites that we supply, and we've been doing that for the last 10 years. We also supply the 20 sites in the Northern Ireland Health Trust, and that includes the Southwest Acute Hospital in Enniskillen, and that's a 4-megawatt installation. And just to give you an idea, there's about 4,000 tonnes per annum that goes there, so it's quite close to Balcas, and we're supplying that for over 10 years as well, and we're quite proud of that. These are some customers that have come online lately in the south of Ireland that are SSRH clients. This is the Radisson Blue in Letterkenny, and it has a leisure centre, and they've installed a 300 kilowatt wood pellet boiler. They originally were using wood chip, and they changed over to wood pellet, and they're very, very happy. They would say that they've very little issues with the wood pellet, with no blockages, etc. And one of the main attractions for them is that the delivery takes less than an hour. This is another one of our new clients. This is Opart Hygiene in Sligo. They've installed two 125 kilowatt boilers. They're also very happy with the installation. They have a silo on site and a cabin, and this supplies space heating to the building, and they've been working very well for them as well. Other customers we have, again, I've mentioned councils. Councils are usually they're your Balcas swimming pools. You have offices, you have fire stations. You've got, there's the Keelagher Community Hospital. So there's a diverse range of installations. It's working with the customer, making sure the boiler has somewhere to go. Like I said, it's a small footprint, and also the storage. Also, obviously, if you can get the bigger storage, the better for a bigger load, which keeps costs down. I'll hand back to Colm now to talk about biomass supply.
Okay, so when we look at a lot of questions you get asked is where is future biomass supply going to come from? So we've looked at this kind of from our perspective as being our wood pellets coming as a co-product of the sawmill, and how that can affect where the supply is going to come from. So if we look at the Ireland and UK sawn timber market, it's currently about 12 to 14 million cubic meters per annum. Locally produced sawn timber is matching about 4 million cubic meters of that, and Lennon Brothers have about 20 to 25% of that market. So that means that imports are hitting about 8 to 10 million cubic meters. So there is an opportunity to take some of this volume with increased local timber supply. There are about 4 million cubic meters of roundwood maturing in Ireland every year. This is expected to double over the next 10 to 15 years. The average sawmill yield is around 50%, a little bit more maybe, depending on what's being produced. So this increased availability should make more residue available for alternative use, such as wood pellet production and CHP fuel. Increased investment will be required if local producers are to increase their share of the UK and Ireland sawn timber market. This could substantially increase the availability of wood pellet fuel and also protect against unsustainable production leading to forest depletion. If we look at forest biomass then as an economic driver, so the Austrian Biomass Association says that to heat an average home with forest biomass requires approximately 23 man-hours of local labour, and local is the word, the operative word there, and I'll explain why. To heat the same house with oil requires only 3 man-hours of local labour, and with gas it's only 1.5 man-hours. The Hartberg region of Austria is evenly split between urban and rural populations, And its heating energy use is also quite evenly split between fossil fuels and renewable sources, being 53% fossil fuel and 47% biomass. A study on the Hartberg Climate Energy Regional Model found the following. Heating with biomass created 31 full-time jobs, but heating with fossil fuels created only 4. The flow of money out of the region was more than €7 million with fossil fuels, but only €1 million with biomass. What are the implications of that? Well, if you look at carbon emissions, there's 31,000 tonnes being generated by fossil fuels and only 800 by biomass. If Hartberg were heated with biomass alone, the number of jobs would grow to 61. The cash outflow would fall to €1.6 million, and the carbon emissions would be only 1,600 tonnes. If fossil fuels were only used, the number of jobs would fall to only 9. The cash outflow would rise to €15.1 million, and carbon emissions would be 58,500 tonnes. So what's the conclusion? Well, money spent on fossil fuels leaves the local economy and fills millionaires' pockets in faraway places. But when we heat with local sustainable biomass, we protect local jobs, we improve the local economy, and we significantly reduce carbon emissions. So one question we have, or it's pretty noticeable from the examples that Paula gave of customers, like we have a lot more customers in Northern Ireland and the UK per head of population than we have in the Republic of Ireland. And why is this? I suppose I put up a few thoughts here, and there's probably an awful lot more. But Ireland obviously was much later in introducing an incentive scheme. When that scheme did come in, the SSRH, it has been very slow to take off for various reasons, which I'm not going to go into here because it's been well flogged to death, as we all know. RHI issues which occurred in Northern Ireland haven't helped. COVID has definitely affected businesses' ability and willingness to invest. There's also, and this is a fairly pointed note, there's a lack of appreciation of the implications of carbon tax increases. We take oil there, for example, where I've highlighted in red, I've highlighted the current cost per litre or unit of carbon at 33.50 a tonne as it is at the moment. So oil is just over 8 cents, nearly 8.5 cents a litre at the moment that you're paying in carbon tax on every litre of oil. In 2030, when carbon tax is at least €100 a tonne, it could be more, every litre of oil will be subject to 25 cent carbon tax. And that is, it doesn't matter what the price actually is. The price could be very low or it could be really high, but 25 cent of it is going to be carbon tax. Same for LPG and the same for natural gas. It's going to triple between now and 2030. Other reasons will be there's probably a suspicion, Ireland is very traditional in how we do things, and there's probably a suspicion of anything that's non-fossil fuel related. Some previous experiences, high profile of biomass haven't helped, where people have put in systems and weren't maintained properly and they haven't been happy with them, and that still knocks around. You have to kind of knock that on the head when you're talking to people. Another huge issue is that government and media focus has been almost 100% on electrification through wind and solar power. Biomass will have a huge part to play in Ireland's decarbonisation. It won't be as big as wind and solar power, but it still has a huge part to play, but it never gets spoken about. And that is a huge issue, I believe. So what are Balcas? What do we do, or how are we expanding our client base and the number of installations? So the options available from us are, like, we can do fuel supply. If somebody has an installation already and they want pellets just as an ad hoc delivery, then we can do that as people ask for it. It'll be at market price at that particular moment. We can also do a fuel supply contract where we'll have a price agreed for a set period of time. And also we will do energy supply contracts, or ESCOs. These can be client funded, third party funded, or Balcas Energy funded. We're open to taking on projects from third party installers or energy consultants, or if somebody's wants to come to us and is thinking about an installation and is looking for advice, we're quite happy to talk to them. What we will do then is we'll work with the client, and we're involved in the entire process, including selecting the best installation partner for the project, sizing the boiler and the system design. We have our own in-house engineering team who will be involved in all that. We can help with the SSRH application. We'll be involved and on site as boiler and infrastructure installation and commissioning is going on. Your fuel supply, obviously, and we can guarantee, if somebody has a contract with us, we can guarantee fuel supply for the term of the contract. And we would be very, and this goes back to the point about people with bad experiences, we would be very hot on making sure that people have an ongoing maintenance and servicing contract to ensure the boiler is always working properly. And for us in particular, if we are providing the ESCO, it's very important that that is done, because obviously if the boiler is down, it's going to cost us money because we're not going to be getting paid for any heat. Any heat that is generated, that is used, then is billed monthly per metered kilowatt hour. So that's much the same as somebody would get their electricity bill or whatever. So for any Balcas Energy funded installations, the capex and finance cost is charged monthly to the client over an agreed period of time, which could be 10 years or it could be slightly less. So much the same as that Paula spoke at the beginning. We all know what the headlines are. Climate change is coming. People spoken about the problems that COVID has caused in society, and with people being able to go to work, people being able to go to school, all of that. But if climate change goes where predictions are saying it could go if we don't act, then it's going to make COVID look like a walk in the park by comparison. And that's, none of us want to be there, and we all want to play our part. Balcas Energy, we're very much focused that we want to play our part in decarbonising the Irish economy. There's the contact details from myself and Paula. You can get us on the phone, on email, on LinkedIn. You can get us on the Balcas Energy website, or you can contact Balcas on the customer service email. So that's it for me. Just to conclude, I'd just like to say a big thank you to Irbia, to Sean and Noel and Teresa for the opportunity to present today. I hope everybody enjoyed it. We're quite happy to take questions from anybody. If there's anybody here, traditionally Balcas, prior to COVID, it's like we talk now, everything is pre-COVID and COVID. But prior to COVID, we would have been very keen to get people up to our site to show them what we do, so to let them know exactly what our operation is. So I'd like to extend an invitation to, if anybody is interested in looking at biomass and wood pellet biomass in particular, and would like to come and visit our site, that contact myself or Paula and we can set that up. We haven't been able to do it for a couple of years, obviously with COVID, but we're very confident that over the next few weeks and months that we will be able to start doing that again. So thanks again to everybody. Thanks for participating, and we're looking forward to hearing your questions.
Thanks very much, Colm, and thanks very much, Paula. Very interesting and insightful presentation, and certainly lots of food for thought on many of your slides. So we have a number of questions coming in through the Q&A tab at the bottom of your screens, and I would encourage you to continue to post those, and we will get to them in our discussion in the next few minutes. Before I go to the questions and answers, and just to give Colm and Paula a chance just to take their breath before we go into the Q&A, I'd just like to bring Noel into our discussion. So Noel Gavigan is our Technical Executive of the Irish Bioenergy Association, also runs the Wood Fuel Quality Assurance Scheme. So Noel, maybe if I could just bring you in, and Colm and Paula have mentioned about EN Plus certification, but also the Wood Fuel Quality Assurance Scheme, which you administer and manages there from a certification perspective. And can you just give us an outline of what's involved in that process, and with regards to WFQA and getting certified, for anyone that's on this morning that might be looking at that?
Yeah, similar to EN Plus, Balcas would also be certified to Wood Fuel Quality Assurance Scheme. The EN Plus would be limited to only pellets, whereas the Wood Fuel Quality Assurance Scheme would certifies all wood products and all biomass products that are listed under the correct regulation. So we can certify firewood suppliers, wood chip suppliers, and wood briquette suppliers, as well as pellet. So we've 36 suppliers around the country certified at this point in time, and we're processing another number as well. But again, a lot of it is all based back to the Red 3 directive, where we're looking at proper sustainability of the material as Paula and Colm have pointed out there, that the sustainability of the raw material is a critical component. We have to do this right, and it's very easy to do it right when the material is there. And Enniskillen in Balcas have shown that they have ample supply of sustainably sourced material. I mean, an interesting figure is there that 50% of material from the tree is usable as lumber, which if we want to go for much more timber and much more sustainable materials in our construction industry, which is ultimately what we need to be doing, we are also going to be producing a huge volume of byproduct. And you can't cut up a tree without producing sawdust, and that's directly feeding into the pellet process. So we are going to produce a lot more of this material. It's a long-term source of renewable energy. So capitalizing on that as much as possible, is only to our betterment.
Okay, thanks very much, Noel. And just in the broader context, can you just give us an outline of the various fuels that the WFQA certifies, and I suppose the role of wood fuels in the whole sustainable forest management process?
Yes, so we would certify firewood, which again, going back to the European standard, they're all listed under one European standard to all the different various wood fuels. So firewood is basically, the main limitation there is usually moisture content. There's new regulations coming in on that in the Republic later on this year. It's already some regulation in the UK about selling it. It must be below 25% moisture content. Ultimately, if you go to under 20. So that is becoming a requirement. By September, we're assured, and everyone within the WFQA is certified to this already for several years. So it's something that we've actually been calling for, and are delighted to see coming in, because it's important for value for the customer and for protecting appliances and protecting air quality. Similar in wood chip, as we see the SSRH is now starting to roll out a little bit stronger than it has been, and the sustainability of the raw material is a critical component of that. So the WFQA is recognised as a certification body for the SSRH, so that it's a certified fuel, it must be shown to be compliant. So we can do that within the WFQA. Okay,
just one question there for you, Noel, before I go to Colm and Paula. A question from John: is imported wood and timber subject to the same standards from a certification point of view, I assume?
It depends. You need to check what the certification is coming in with. If it's coming in with EN+, obviously that's EN+ has its own sustainability criteria. Within the WFQA, we use FSC or PEFC for external material coming in, or the EN+. But we don't obviously go to other countries and audit their processes, but we have to have European recognised schemes that can assure that the material is coming from a sustainable source. But it's very important that it is.
Okay, thank you, Noel. Okay, Colm and Paula, I'm not sure which of you want to take some of these questions, but I think
we'll try.
No problem, Paula. We'll have a go. There's one question there. First of all, Colm specifically asked for you. It's one about ash and the CHP process. So I don't know if you can comment on that.
Paula might be better.
Paula, sorry, either.
Yeah, I'll answer that one.
One of the attractions about wood pellet ash is that it's very high in potash, and it's very good as fertilizer. So we would encourage a lot of our domestic customers that they would use it in their gardens, etc. Our CHP plant, we have quite a lot of ash, and with restrictions it goes off to landfill. But it is very good for fertilizer, and if you have a wood pellet boiler, it's one of the things you can do with it.
Okay, that's very good, and something certainly for our attendees to bear in mind.
Obviously, you need to wear your gloves and all that sort of stuff. Make sure you keep yourself health and safety issues.
Yes, and just more of a comment there from Colm. He just wants to say, as a domestic user, I assume of wood pellets, he can vouch for the reduced dust content of your product versus a well-known supplier. So
that's lovely to hear. That's great to hear. That's good feedback.
So the next question we have there, and I'm not sure which of you wants to take this one, but do you track what companies, industries use your pellets, and do you aid these companies in converting from fossil fuel to CHP or pellets? So Colm, do you want to take that one?
Well, when he says track, I presume is like what industries are we targeting? I think it's probably.
Yeah, well, I think it means 70% commercial, I think you said, isn't it?
Yeah, so obviously, as I said, more than 70% of our business is done commercially. So particular industries are probably more suited to it. So anybody that's using an awful lot of hot water or steam in particular, then they will be a target industry. So food processing, hospitality industry, hotels with swimming
pools, leisure centres,
and all that. But really, anybody who's using heat is a target. And yes, when we talk to them, we give them the benefits of using wood pellets versus fossil fuel. How much carbon are they going to be saving? What their green credentials will be afterwards. Like, that's a huge thing now for a lot of industries.
Yes.
Even big corporates, like, they like to be able to put on their website how much they've reduced their carbon emissions. And like, reducing your heat, your carbon emissions from your heat or your production steam or hot water is a huge part of reducing your greenhouse gas emissions. So yes, we do assist them. We also, what we do is we'll tell them the financial implications. So
yes.
How much is their carbon tax savings? We have a spreadsheet that we can put in how much oil are they using at the moment, or how much gas. It'll tell us how much that's going to cost them over the next 10 years. So
yes.
Not only are we telling them the scientific side, but we're giving them the financial benefits as well.
Okay. We also would encourage in domestic and also in commercial applications, in the actual fabric of the building, making sure they've done their energy efficiency measures as well, that they're good insulation, all those sort of things, because any type of new heating isn't going to work properly or be efficient if you haven't got your insulation, etc., in the actual building. That's sort of part of the course as well.
So I suppose, really, in summary, the answer to that question is that you really do work with your customers and your companies who are interested in converting or either using your wood pellets in their journey.
Yeah, I think, as I said, it's like there is a lot of, well, obviously there's a significant investment required, so anybody has to know all the information. So there wouldn't be any point going in and like saying, well, what do you think? Will you put this in? You have to be able to give them all the information that they need in order to be able to make an informed decision.
Yes.
So that's exactly so.
Just as a follow-on question from Paul, and thanks, Paul, for joining this morning and for your question. Decarbonising Scope 1 emissions is going to be a significant challenge. So Paul agrees 100% with you, Colm, in your slides. My question is, do Balcas discuss this in the quest to move clients over to sustainable fuels? So it's a similar question to what we've answered, but just do you want to
It's the same answer. Yes, 100% we do. We tell them exactly what the implications are for them at the moment, like how much carbon are they emitting. Very often they don't have a clue how many tons of carbon they're emitting every year or every month even. So we'll tell them what that is, and we'll tell them what it's going to cost them, and we'll tell them what it'll be after they put in a wood pellet system. So,
okay.
Yes,
the next question again from Paul is probably one logistical question, or in terms of the delivery and deliveries arriving every day, or the myth, he said, how do we dispel the myth of wood pellet trucks arriving every day? So maybe do you want to comment on that, and maybe the storage options that are utilised on sites or on in facilities for your pellets?
Okay, and commercial, I'll take that. That's okay. In commercial applications, we would encourage customers, the bigger the store, the less deliveries you'll have on site. Again, that depends on the actual, it's case by case and the actual space available. So if you have a fairly big size boiler, the bigger store you have, you've less deliveries on site. With smaller domestic applications, you're looking at an average customer using about 6 tons per year, so that's sort of 2 small deliveries per year. So the myth of delivery trucks every day, it's non-existent. We would work very, very closely with customers to encourage them to, because we do want, obviously we want less deliveries and they want less on-site traffic.
And I know just in your presentation, I think it was Colm, you focused, or one of you mentioned about the poultry sector and poultry farms, whatever. So, and maybe I'm being very general and saying a typical poultry farm, but how often would a delivery take place to a typical poultry unit or is that probably a hard question to answer given size and scale? Just to give an idea to our attendees in terms of this.
It depends on the size of the farm. You're looking at probably a person with one boiler, you're looking at maybe 2 to 3 deliveries per year, depending on how many birds they have. It just depends on the usage. It's very hard to quantify that.
John, if you take it that say we have an 18-ton truck or a 25-ton truck, so an 18-ton truck will do a delivery. It's about 80 to 85,000 kilowatt hours of heat.
Okay.
Now a 25-ton truck is about 100 to 120,000 kilowatt hours of heat. So it really depends on how much. So obviously a bigger user, we'd be recommending much more storage. So we definitely
bigger storage.
That anybody, we wouldn't be looking. Even a really big user, like I think the delivery, the picture we had of the delivery happening in Hatton, and
yes,
that happens about every 3 or 4 days.
Okay. Well, I think that myth is dispelled. Moving on, our next question here. Are you targeting the climate action plan target of reducing fossil fuel heat demand by 2030? If so, what role do you think Balcas can play in that? So,
okay, well, let's go back to, we have an alternative fuel to fossil fuels. It works very well in numerous commercial situations. And yes, we are also, you know, obviously we spoke about COVID and the implications and people being kind of, you know, nervous about investing a lot of money. Like, we can do an ESCO whereby they don't have to pay any upfront capex. So we will cover that, and then it's built in over a period of time. And what we would find when we're doing talking to people is the savings will actually pay for the installation, and then there'll be still some savings left on top of that. So obviously the overall, it's like paying for anything with a loan or with, you know, finance. It is an extra cost, but it's well covered. So that's what we can do.
And just, I suppose, in the context and a comment, Noel, maybe if you come in here on this point around the climate action plan, in terms of maybe just explain to our attendees about our 40 by 30 report and what that's actually trying to achieve, because I think that's an important point to make. So
yeah, look, critically, we have some fairly extensive targets to meet over the next number of decades, and it's going to be a feature of ongoing. But we, together with the Heat Pump Association, ourselves, solar industry, wind, under the umbrella of Renewable Energy Ireland, we put together commissioned a report to look at what resources were available to meet all of the heating demands of the country, and to look at particularly 40% by 2030. And it very clearly shows there's a need for a whole range of technologies depending on the heat use. We looked at the various heat uses. Colm and Paula were talking earlier about, you know, where some customers want high temperature heat like steam or high temperature hot water, and different technologies suit different uses. And there is a real need, you know, no single technology is going to be able to meet the challenge that we have. And the heating market, and it's a heat market, it doesn't really matter what they're actually using it for, is very broad. And there is a huge need to mobilize every technology that is available to us, and to be able to maximize their input into the challenge.
Yeah, I suppose there's another point as well there to make is domestic users. So I know you've done an awful lot of work as regards how you can decarbonise domestic heat without having to go through a huge, like, take out a new mortgage nearly to fund it. So if you can do it with biomass. And like our wood pellets, we've spoken a lot, and I have mentioned it a couple of times about, we do supply bags as well. So, you know, if a customer, a domestic customer, puts in a smaller system, that they don't have to have a bulk storage in order to be able to use that system. They can buy bags. Like, all they need is a bit of like a dry space that they can store bags. So, you know, if they have a garage or whatever that they can get a pallet into, yes, they can buy a pallet at a time. But you can probably go to your local hardware shop and buy half a dozen bags at a time. You know, so it is available to everybody. It's not just big users. It's down to the very small households as well.
Yeah, it's a critical component. That we've a huge amount of houses to decarbonise, and for many of those and buildings in general. Some are listed buildings, some the owners are just not able to afford the capital cost. I mean, some of the community housing schemes were as far as, you know, an exceeding €70,000 a house to retrofit. That's a massive amount of money for anyone to be able to put into a house. And for most, they're not going to be in a position to do so. Pellets, firewood, and, you know, they offer, and possibly district heating, offer massive potential there to decarbonise a lot of our housing stock. And for many people, that will be the option that they will go with. And it's something that you can pick up off the shelf, literally, and have installed within the month, you know, so it's something that can be done very quickly. We have a massive challenge here in housing, so we don't have the labour force to do all this retrofitting. So in terms of, it really is going to be a major player over the next decade.
Just on that point, Noel, a very good point and a very important point, but our policy and our government efforts in this regard are very much putting their eggs in the retrofitting basket. Obviously retrofitting will be for some people, but maybe not for everyone. So what's your view on that in terms of what is required to maybe change that, and to incentivize maybe more looking at heating source rather than actually the full retrofit, deep retrofit?
Yeah, I mean, the policy seems to be very much towards deep retrofit is the only way to go, and it's not going. We already see figures last year are about 11,000. I was just looking at the Republic. 11,000 houses retrofitted. We have a target of, I think it's 600,000 plus in 10 years. So we're going nowhere near meeting the target, and we know we're not going to meet it. We neither the labour force or the people are willing to go into, we're not going to convince 60,000 people a year to spend that sort of money. Okay. So there is a low cost option here, and it's the technology is off the shelf. You have France there with 600,000 installations in the past 5 years. You know, you have Germany, Austria, massive amount of installations going in. It's happening.
Wood pellet systems.
Of wood pellet and wood chip systems. Yes.
Yes. Okay. Question from Ian. Thanks, Ian, for your question. Has Balcas considered using blended fuel stocks, i.e., wood chip / hemp straw mix, in order to present more local land for fuel production, as land use conversion to forestry and biomass is under-delivered to date, in this person's opinion? So, do you want to comment on that?
Paula, I'll leave you to that one.
You
don't need to really consider that, considering the volumes of resource you have. Would that be the answer, Paula?
Obviously, with the process we have with our timber, we have quite sufficient amounts of raw material on site and all that sort of thing. Yeah. It's something we can look at, but the way we work at the minute, so we use what we have, and we're self-sufficient and carbon neutral, and that's the way our setup has been.
I think we need a different production process, like a very much.
Yeah.
Okay, so you're
we're open to discuss all sorts of things, but at the minute that's the way we work.
Noel, is that an option, maybe outside of for some of the wood fuel quality assurance members, to look at more blended fuels, wood chip and hemp straw mix, etc., or other mixes?
They all fit into the various standards that are there, that are set out. But look,
so there's a wood briquette standard.
There's criteria to meet, and if you're going to non-woody material, you have to really watch things like the chlorine level and nitrogen level. So they're things we have to be very careful of, but it's possible.
I'll go to you, Noel, on the next question. Clearly, our presenters are in the green / biofuel industry. Do you think there's a future for HVO in Ireland over the coming decades to decarbonise oil use? Noel, maybe would you comment on that?
Well, HVO, I suppose, is hydrated vegetable oil.
Explain what it is, just for anyone that doesn't know.
It's where you convert vegetable oil into a product that can directly replace fossil diesel. So, I mean, look, there's also other forms of biodiesel, and there's ethanol out there for transport fleets. Now, obviously, ethanol is more for the car market. But absolutely, as long as the material meets the criteria set out, I mean, it has to be sustainable, and we have to be very, very careful about when we're dealing with vegetable oil, some of it coming from parts of the world where, we could be looking at palm oil coming in. So now, I don't want to put a scare on it, but just we have to be very, very careful of what's being used. Okay. So that's where the whole sustainability criteria is set down by.
And would it be transport ahead of heating, or I know our recently published transport report, which we did our last webinar, which is available online, has a big piece on this HVO. So if anyone is interested in reading that, there's a piece on HVO. To Jermad, question from Jermad there, and I don't know, does Colm or Paula want to take this? What is the shelf life of your wood pellets, or is there a shelf life on wood pellets? Is question.
Well, wood pellets, if they're kept clean and dry and away from moisture, we have customers who have wood pellets in stores for numbers of years, and they've been quite okay. It's just making sure they're kept clean and dry.
Okay. Another question regarding storage. What would the best option of storing the pellets for a domestic heating system be? So would a container need to be purchased, or no, I think Colm, you might have answered this around bags.
Yeah, I think there is no need for a container. Obviously, a lot of domestic users do, like if they have a big garden and they have space, they will put in a pellet store. But as I said, you can buy pellets either online from us directly or in your local hardware store. We supply a lot of the hardware stores in the country, like of Chadwick's and things like that. So, there is pellets are readily available. Yeah.
Okay, question here. So is there scope to aid the transformation required in sustainable forestry in place of dairy farming, with guaranteed payments for Balcas to ensure delivery of sustainable supply as you expand? So I don't know, Noel, do you want to comment on that first of all? It's about land use, and is there a scope? Now, they mentioned this particular attendee mentions dairy farming, but it's probably dairy farming would be seen as the most profitable of all the farming sectors. So it's probably more other sectors that might be potentially in competition with forestry for land. So do you want to comment on that in terms of the overall?
Well, it is very difficult to see dairy farming being displaced by forestry, basically on the economics of it, but possibly beef, possibly some other extensive farming types. But there is a need for strong support now, whether it should be private companies like Balcas or whether it should continue to be the state that does that. I mean, it's a challenge in getting the planting rates that we need, right? But our planting rates, I know in the public world, we 2,000 hectares last year. We're saying we need 8 is the target. We actually need 16 if we want to 16,000 if we want to successfully fix the amount of carbon we had in some of our plans. So I mean, in terms of Balcas and as guaranteed
we'll maybe turn to Colm and Paula on that point. I suppose the question for you really is around guaranteed payments. So perhaps you want to comment on that in terms of supply of raw material.
Like we're a co-product of the sawmill, so the forestry team would deal with supply. So it's like I don't think I wouldn't be in a position to talk about it anyway. I mean, I'm not sure what their policy is exactly in regards to forestry.
There is an important point though here, Colm, which you made in your slides about fluctuations in fossil fuel versus stability in terms of maybe biomass supply. So I'm going to comment on that.
And like I think we also said that like 30% of our supply comes from local landowners or like local owners. It's not from Keelagher or whoever. So we have a history of dealing with local private landowners when it comes to supply. So that's something that we do actively encourage. Okay. Whether there will be a contract for X amount of timber over so many years at a certain price, I'm not sure where that will go. I don't know.
Okay. We just have one or two maybe comments to conclude, just to bring them to you here, because we can't take any more questions at this stage because we're over time. But the minimum size, what is the minimum size for a wood pellet chip? So
you're saying CHP? Is it?
Or sorry, apologies, for a wood pellet CHP. Apologies.
Yeah. Wood pellet CHP. We deliberately didn't mention it. It's for numerous reasons. Our CHP runs on wood chip because it's a certain size. You can do smaller versions with a Rackine engine and things like that, where you have to go through gasification and things like that. So what the minimum size for that will be, I don't really know. I could look it up, but
I seen a demo of 2 kilowatt, but costs are quite high. As a demonstration, yes, it can be done, but in terms of practical and economic viability is another thing.
Just a few comments to bring you here. Thanks, Anthony, for joining. Thanks to you all as a pellet user and retired SMF timber producer. I'm aware of the difficulties of explaining and selling the benefits of process and product. Colm has a comment, I think, on the HVO. Colm's opinion is too expensive for heating, no capex to change over. Richard, a comment, the prediction for timber volumes in the island of Ireland are robust. However, the mobilisation of these timbers volumes is not happening in line with predictions. The supply of wood is finite. So I suppose mobilisation of timber is a challenge, or wood. So maybe a topic we can come back to. So I think that concludes our questions. I hope we have addressed all the queries that have come forward to us. So we need to conclude. I would like to first of all thank Colm and Paula for taking time out of your busy schedules to present this morning and for your very insightful and informative presentation. Thanks also to Noel for joining the panel. I'd like to thank Teresa O'Brien, who behind the scenes makes sure all this runs smoothly. So thanks, Teresa, for your help and support in terms of rolling out the webinar series. And just to conclude, I'd like to thank all our participants this morning. We had a very good attendance this morning, some very good interaction through the Q&A tab and chat function. So again, I encourage you to keep an eye out on our social media channels for our next webinar, which will take place this day 2 weeks at the same time. So until then, I hope you have a good day and stay safe, and we look forward to seeing you the next time. So see you everyone. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.